A.C.E.S Junkyard Podcast. Those annoying mech evangelists who keep yelling about how the new Locust meta is nigh.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Armored Combat Escalation Service Podcast, episode 39, your number one voted MWO and Battletech podcast. Today is April 21st, 2016. I'm your host Brandon, also known as Cattra, Kell, and with me today, of course, as always, is Tierkron. How's it going, bud?
Pretty good. It's big news this week. I mean, we
I
have
know,
a
lots to
giant
talk about.
match, a little hot fix.
Yeah. Lots of goodies.
Yep, lots of delicious goodies.
So let's start right off with let's jump right into the patch notes. Of course, on the 19th there was a pretty sizable patch. Of course, the biggest thing in it being Phase 3 of Community Warfare or Faction Play. And overall, I can say I really like it. I spent probably a good amount of time doing the scouting missions. I do have some gripes about it, but I just want to get your overall thoughts on the patch in general, though.
Overall, the community warfare or faction play, as it is now called officially, this Phase 3-ish patch for it is just, it feels like this is what community warfare was always intended to be. And we know it is kind of what it always was intended to be, considering the various launch events that PGI has put on, and looking back at those, you can see when they put up their PowerPoint presentations or any type of presentation, their announcements, they wanted this, path of various career levels where you could be a freelancer, or you could be a mercenary, or you could be a house loyalist, or a clan loyalist. So lots of really good things in this patch. We start off, as I said, with 3 different career paths. Freelancer, basically for all of those out there who are not in a unit, who might want to play with other people, but are not really ready to jump in and make a commitment. They have their own, solo queue right now. They don't have to worry about dropping into a match and facing off against a 12-man pre-made team. That's probably one of the best things right now to be added outside of just the various career paths. Is the queues have been segregated so that you have solo players in one queue, and any player that has a unit tag or is in a unit in a completely other queue. That second queue, though, the unit queue, while it has been referred to as the group queue, it's really not a group queue. It's if you are part of a unit. So if you are dropping solo, you're still regulated to that queue. So you're going to see people that have unit tags. You're going to run into pre-made groups, but you're not going to run into anyone that doesn't have a tag. So dropping solo, yeah, you could experience the same thing that you were experiencing beforehand, before Phase 3 came out, where you could drop in to a random battle and suddenly be paired up against an 8-man, a 12-man, a full comp team that's playing community warfare. Some people are going to say that's not fair, but unfortunately, that's the queue that you're in right now. So it behooves you that if you are part of a unit to encourage your fellow unit members to be on and play. You don't really want to see people dropping by themselves from a unit into some of these things, but it's going to happen. People have schedules, they have lives, they can't always be on at the same time. But encouraging group play from your unit is definitely going to be for your benefit. We have
And I
the
mean,
mercenaries that have been added, which, you know, basically speaks for itself.
and I mean, in general, the community or faction play, I should say, has always been about trying to get yourself in the group and doing the group drops and stuff like that. Because it is supposed to be kind of like the end game content, sort of.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Though I will say, in the latest No Guts, No Galaxy podcast, number 138, just to say specifically, because they might release one before we release this one. Don't know. Could happen. But they made a point of saying that there's a major difference between community warfare faction play and the comp scene and comp teams. And while they have a point it's only to an extent, in my opinion. Comp teams that play together and are, have earned that title of comp team or comp unit going into faction play, they're still going to bring those same skills. They're still going to dominate most matches. It will be very rare for them to lose any time unless paired up against another team that has earned that title of comp team, because they bring a very deep understanding of the game to their play style. They know the min max of every mech, they know the meta, they know how the game's played, they know every little trick that can be used to get that last iota of performance out of a mech. It's While it's not the same as comp play in terms of tournament play, it's still a higher tier level of play that you really can't call it anything other than comp. So there's still going to be a bit of a disconnect between players playing faction play.
And I mean, that is to be expected. It is, as you kind of said, different game mode and everything like that. So I understand that there's probably going to be people that want to play faction play super hardcore, and there's going to be people who just want to do a more competitive style gaming. So
Yeah. So we have freelancers, basically your solo player who is dropping in for fun and glory. Then you have mercenaries. Mercenaries are people who belong to groups that want to jump around the map. They don't want to be tied down to one particular faction except for a short period of time. It's Prior to phase 3, there were some complaints that the system was too lenient towards mercenaries. Mercenaries were allowed too much leeway in being able to jump from faction to faction without really any penalty. The new phase 3 style gives some balance to mercenary work. It's not as total as some people probably want, but I think it helps a lot better. Uh, Going into the contract board as a mercenary, you can see how many units are signed up with a particular faction. So you can tell, okay, this faction has 17 units, so the bonus that is with it is lower than this faction that only has 7 units signed with it. If I want more C-bills, more loyalty, more mercenary points, reputation points, as they're now called, for my unit as mercenaries, I might want to go with the faction that has less units signed up with it currently, rather than the faction that has more units signed up with it. Yes, that might mean I'm going to face harder matches because the other faction could be dominating through quantity rather than quality. But it's it's a risk you have to take. It's like we talked about in the previous podcast, the risk reward model of mercenary life. You could get a lot of payout if you play your cards right, if you're smart, but there's a risk to doing so. Then we have loyalists, who are the group players and even solo players who sign on with a faction permanently or semi-permanently because they can break faction loyalty. It just will cost it. There is a major cost for breaking that loyalty. The big thing, though, that the faction loyalists have over mercenaries is that the faction loyalists decide who that faction is going to go to war with. They, for a 24-hour period before the attack phases, they decide by voting on what attack lane they want to be in to go after a opposing faction. I don't have I haven't seen all the details on that yet, considering A.C.E.S is a mercenary company, and I haven't had a chance to talk to any of the major faction loyalist groups that I know to see how they're enjoying their new power of deciding who is going to be attacked and when. But so far, it seems to be working out from what I can see on the forums.
Well, again, I haven't seen the war planning section either. There's a good write-up on the patch notes of how it works and stuff like that. But as far as functionality, like actual hands-on functionality, you're right. I have not seen it since we are a mercenary unit. So we have more probably idea of how the mercenary stuff works, I would think.
Yeah.
But it does seem really cool.
Yep.
I actually think that now there's a reason to be a loyalist faction. As with Phase 2, there really wasn't, I guess. You're better off basically going mercenary and just keep signing contracts with that house.
Yeah. The one thing about the war planning that I will say I think needs to be tweaked I don't know if you could do this in a hot fix or if it's going to have to be a whole nother patch, is the fact that with war planning, loyalists deciding who their faction will attack and all, I think that PGI needs to remove the all Inner Sphere factions able to defend against a clan opponent and all clan factions able to defend against an Inner Sphere opponent. I've been in a number of drops for the scouting missions where as as a clan player, I've been dropping onto my clan attack planet, and I'm getting hit by every Inner Sphere faction, and they're overwhelming the board because my clan can only attack that planet, but we're grossly outnumbered by the number of by the defenders that can show up. So, with the attack war planning, vectors as they are right now, however you want to describe, I think they need to tone that back. Maybe allow it for special events like Tukid or other weekends or week-long events that they want to do a big major fight across an entire front per se. But for regular faction play, I think they need to scale that back.
I agree. And I think you should be able to somehow, if you're a mercenary unit at least, and you're currently signed on to a house faction or whatever faction, at least be able to see what the votes are looking like, perhaps. Maybe not like be able to influence it, because that'd be the whole point of the loyalty factions and stuff like that. The loyalty house, or the loyalists, I should say. But as a mercenary currently signed to that faction, you should be able to just check and see what the votes are perhaps currently sitting at, so you can see maybe who you might be fighting next.
Yeah, that I would agree with that. It would help because we know while there is a disconnect in game for mercenaries and loyalists, many of the mercenaries that sign with a faction for a contract often go over to that faction's team speak and coordinate. So sometimes they camp out in that faction's team speak for the time of their contract, but for those units that don't, it would be nice for them to see how the votes are trending, and then they can send messages back and forth with their contacts in that faction. It's going to be that meta communication, that community work ethic that we kind of some people complain about and other people applaud. I, for one, applaud it. But yeah, it'd be neat for mercenaries to actually be able to see how their faction is trending. Then some big changes with this patch for units, for member management, rank management, and the like. Uh, for anyone who's in a unit who is not aware, before looking at member management and the like, you couldn't reorganize the member management. So, however people signed up for the unit, it kind of listed them as such. So you could have your oldest players at spread randomly throughout the list of members, and it'd be really hard to look and see on your member management who's ranked what, who's listed where. Now we can actually sort the list, which is something we have been kind of wanting for a while now for those of us who are in units. Uh, there's also been a couple tweaks to rank management of being a little bit more user friendly. Then the unit coffers have actually come into play in two ways. First, a unit that has a tag on a planet can use their unit coffer to upgrade the planet's defenses by basically buying more areas on the wheel that need to be taken in order for the planet to fall. And the other use is C-bill coffers are used for recruiting, in which if a player wants to join your unit, a recruitment ticket has to be purchased. And we had talked about this previously. And we now have our answer that the cost of purchasing those tickets comes out of the unit coffer, and they are still proportional. And they actually provide us with a example of what the progression is. If you are starting a brand new unit, and you're the unit leader, the the next person you invite into the unit is going to cost 50,000 C-bills to invite. When you get to 10 people, it's going to jump to 500,000, and 25, it's 1.25 million C-bills. And if you get all the way up to 200 people, it's going to cost 10 million C-bills. So for units, this means there's going to be a lot more member management. You're not going to want tons of players on your roster that don't show up for weeks and months on end, because every time you want to recruit someone, it's going to cost you a lot more than what it would if those absent players weren't on your roster. So some of the larger bloated units are probably going to have to sit down and decide what's their cutoff for removing someone from the roster. if they're absent for a week, do you cut them? If they're absent for a month, do you cut them? What are legitimate excuses for being away for a while? Well, these are things that they're going to have to figure out for themselves. Already in ACES, we ourselves are talking about how to deal with our roster and our member management. We haven't come up with a finalized plan, but it's something that that it belongs to a unit is eventually going to have to talk about, especially not only because of the cost for recruiting, but if you are a unit that gets a tag on the planet, you get MC. And MC goes into a unit fund and is then distributed as the unit leaders see fit. So you could give every single member of your unit one MC, but that might not work out if you've got 200 plus members. And and some people might decry it if only of those 200 members, only 20 of them are showing up to play faction warfare. So it's something that is going to need to be addressed individually by the units themselves internally.
Well, I just want to get your overall thoughts on the scaling of the invite ticket costs, because personally I'm not a fan. I'm all right with having to pay C-bills out of the unit coffer to invite people, but the drastic scale in which it increases it just rubs me a little bit the wrong way.
I think it could have scaled a little smoother. 50,000
50,000 for your first initial invites, I think, are fine. And then just double it after. So instead of going like a 100% increase, just like, or not, sorry, it's like 1,000% increase, isn't it? 50 to 200,000, yeah.
When you get to 10 players, though.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So it's...
But like, even then, 10 players still isn't enough to do a full drop, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think they could have had a shallower curve for the lower numbers. Like, say, get to 30 or 40 and keep it below or at the maximum 1 million. When you say, like, when you get to 40 players, it'll cost you 1 million C-bills for a recruitment ticket. And then after that, then start ramping it up.
Yeah,
Personally,
exactly.
I think 200 if you're in a unit that has 200 members, 10 million C-bills is not a lot, really, and truthfully. If every single member of your unit donates 1 million C-bills upon their recruitment, you've got a gigantic war chest. So 10 million C-bills is not going to bother you. But
I think that's the problem right there. You're depending on people to donate into the war chest.
Yeah, and that's something else that units are going to have to decide on their own. Are they basically going to have to charge a membership fee? And that's going to probably be decided by various factors. How heavy is your recruiting? Are you getting new recruits constantly? Then you might need to mandate that donations to the unit coffer if you're having lots of recruits. If you are in a unit that is not doing a lot of recruiting, say a group like SJR that's relatively small and works more for a quality level of player and membership rather than quantity, then they might not do a unit, a membership fee being a requirement, because they aren't worried about constantly having to shell out for recruitment tickets. But so that's something that units are going to have to decide on their own, just like how they're going to have to decide about trimming their roster or how large they allow their roster to get before they start breaking into subunits or something. We know a couple units that we are friendly with that, while there is an overarching unit name for the group, they are actually broken down into subunits, and they have talked about recreating those subunits in game in order to keep the numbers smaller for those purposes. So it's something that everyone's going to have to decide for themselves, and I think there's not really going to be one overruling way to approach it. Every unit is going to have probably a slightly different approach. Yes, some approaches are probably going to be copied, but it's going to be a great variety. And if you're in a unit and you don't agree with how they're approaching it, there are plenty of other units out there that you could go and join. That's another thing that you can see now with changes to in Phase 3. There are the in-game leaderboards that tell you the loyalist units and tell you the mercenary units, and you can go through and see them by rank. So if you can also see their membership number, you can see a lot of details about them, and it it can help people make an informed decision on who they might want to scout out to see if they want to join. Uh, Lots of extra tools there for players that I can only hope will help strengthen the community overall.
But to say leaderboards has probably been one of my favorite things that's been added recently, because now you actually have some sort of aside from planet count, some sort of actual way to measure like against other units or with other units, because you get all sorts of information from the leaderboards as well.
And as a clarifying point, the leaderboards, the information gathered on them has only been for this start of the season 1 of faction play, which started on Tuesday with this patch that implemented Phase 3. I've heard a number of people complain, oh, well, why aren't I ranked higher, or why isn't this unit ranked higher? Because they've been playing, every day since Community Warfare came out. They should be, ranked number 1, and they're not. And it's, well, because it's from Tuesday on. Everything before that basically has been wiped. It doesn't count in terms of stats as they are counted right now on the leaderboards. Maybe that'll change in the future. I doubt it. I think it's only going to go from Tuesday on out, but we'll have to wait and see on that. So, uh, another question I've heard people asking is, how long is a season? So, and from that, I have not heard a definitive answer. A couple people have cited different things, but I haven't seen anything directly from PGI regarding how long a season is.
And that I actually don't know right offhand myself. I hope seasons last a good while. Like I would like to see, ideally, I would probably like to see maybe like every 6 months would be good for a season in my opinion.
Yeah. It'd be interesting if they do a summer season and a winter season, or maybe they'll do it a one season per year. Who knows? Uh, Hopefully, at the end or beginning of each season, they'll have a major event, such as we've had in the past with Tukid. They didn't do one with the start of this Phase 3, predominantly because I think Phase 3 was such a big undertaking for them. They just didn't have the time and resources to devote to creating a large event around it, and they wanted to implement the Phase 3 basically in something of a more controlled environment. So if issues came up that they had to fix, they weren't worried about an event going on at the time.
Yeah, and I mean a third battle of Tukid might have been a little bit too much.
Yeah. Especially considering the way the two battles of Tukid have played out so far have not been very pretty. there have been many complaints on both sides of how the events are structured. So it's probably something PGI just does not want to deal with at the moment while they're implementing such a big patch and change overall to faction play. So, moving on, we have scouting now, the
Yes.
4v4 scout mode.
I have to say, I really enjoy the game mode because it actually requires movement and not just fighting. And if sometimes fights break out, it's usually a lot more fun, in my opinion. You got a big, wider area to fight in because you don't have as many mechs on the ground. Movement is actually pretty key in that mode.
Yep. I have seen a couple people complain about the tonnage limit of 55 tons that most clan drops for scouting are taking 4 storm crows, and that the inner sphere doesn't have a good answer to that.
Well, I mean, it's kind of true. Like, so for example, the other night, A.C.E.S, we were doing, I think, 2 scouting drops at the same time. So we had one group scouting, the other group scouting, and every single drop, I think we were running 4 storm crows. If you're playing clan, there's no reason not to, I guess.
Yeah. I understand where people are coming from with it. I do agree that running into a group of 4 storm crows is a pretty daunting task, even if you are a opposing clan force and you are also running into 4 storm crows. That makes it an even fight, but it's still it's kind of boring at that point. It's like, okay, it's Stormcrow versus Stormcrow. What are you running? Oh, it's a Street Crow, and he's running an SRM Bomber Crow, and it's.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what we were running. We were running
Yeah.
basically 2 Wub Crows and 2 Bomber Crows, and if you ever came across, and we would just pair off. So if we came across something, we would try to retreat to each other.
That said, though, I have seen a number of Inner Sphere players beat the 4 Stormcrow drop. It's not easy. The biggest thing is that if you are an Inner Sphere player and you go up against a Stormcrow, you have to remember the biggest target on the Stormcrow is its legs. It has very big chicken walker legs. That might change in June when they do the resizing, but as it sits right now, Stormcrow's legs are the biggest and most vulnerable target for them. The other thing is, if you're going up against Stormcrows, the side torsos are vulnerable if you're catching it directly from the side. If you're facing head on, though, you're not going to hit the side torsos very easily. So if that's the case, head on rather than aiming directly for the side torso, aim for where the shoulder joint is, where the side torso and arm connects, because that usually counts damage more towards the side torso than the arm. So if you're trying to kill a mech that way, that will help you better than just aiming directly at the side torso, considering the geometry and hitbox size of the Stormcrow. So there are ways of beating the Stormcrow drop deck. It's not easy, and it's going to take time and effort on your part.
I mean, probably your best bet, at least what I've seen so far, would be to take a Shadowhawk or a Griffin and do so for the Griffin you would do an SRM bomb, and for the Shadowhawk you do like an AC-10 and SRM bomb. That's probably your key things for going up against Stormcrows.
Yeah. The other thing to do is, if you are playing Inner Sphere, there is a way to beat the Stormcrow drop deck without actually fighting the Stormcrow drop deck. And that is, if you are on attack and your job is to gather the intel. Go for those intel nodes. Don't, run away. Use your speed. What is it? I believe it's the Firestarter S, which has the 2 AMS mounts, is very good for this. You put 2 AMS on there with an AMS overload module, and you can negate the majority of streak missiles fired at you. And if all 4 of you are running that, you can pretty much stop all of the streak fire from at least 2 storm crows. So if you're more intent on running and gathering the intel, you can not only avoid the storm crows, but you can negate them somewhat by using that AMS to your advantage. Remember, the as we've said before with game modes in the regular queue, not the faction play queue, you have to play to the game mode. Yes, it's fun to kill the other team, but that won't always guarantee that you win the match. So sometimes it's better. Discretion is the better part of valor in this case, and being able to be nimble and fast and capture points quickly and efficiently can often see you in a better stead than just standing up and fighting it out. I've seen a couple drops where people will take 3 big medium mechs that will slog it out, and they'll have a little light mech like a spider or a fire starter or an arctic cheetah or a jenner that will just their job is just to run around and grab the cap points, and they do that while their 3 big mechs are basically buying them time, and they win the match because before the opposing team realizes it, the drop ship's coming in, and that little light mech it has hidden itself and then sprints at the last moment, gets in that that drop LZ just before the timer goes out, and they're away before you can do anything. So it's it's something that people have to get used to, and they have to remember that game mode that you play to the game modes, and more often than not, by doing so, you will have victory.
Also in the hot fix that's going to be coming in or has come in is also basically on all data points captured. Apparently they're going to be increasing the rewards, I believe.
Yes, they go up to 1,000 C-bills and 50 XP.
So there's actually a little bit of incentive there again now to capture instead of just scouting out and getting the fight.
Yeah. So, and now with the introduction of the scouting mode, we have, well, what does all that intel get you? Well, we know what it is. It gets you a combat identification, it gets you satellite sweep, and it gets you artillery support. What are your opinions so far on this? Because I've seen very mixed ones.
Oh boy. Long toms need nerfed bad.
Well, Long Tom is getting hit in the hot fix that has come out today. The damage has been reduced. The warning smoke is larger. That said, I don't like the mechanic for the Long Tom of aiming for the largest concentration of enemy mechs and firing basically once that meter is full. I would prefer a little bit more of a guided uh, ability that someone on the team can designate where they want the Long Tom to come in at rather than just concentrating on the biggest source of enemy, because I've seen a couple teams play that to their advantage. There's actually a video up on Twitch right now from Night Scorn where they figured out that they could use the Long Tom mechanic to their advantage when they did not have when they were facing the Long Tom and didn't have it on their side. And what they would do was take 6 light mechs and 6 assault mechs, and the light mechs would all group up, and the assault mechs would group up, but they would stay relatively thin, spread out, so that so when the Long Tom came in, it wouldn't go after them. and they would basically kamikaze their light mechs into the biggest concentration of opposing mechs, wait for that right as the long tom gauge clicked up, and as soon as they heard that long tom was incoming, they'd bug out, and they were killing anywhere from 2 to 3 opposing mechs using that tactic. Yes, they would lose maybe 2 to 3 light mechs due to concentrated enemy fire, but the fact that your opponent is losing mechs due to what is essentially friendly fire was quite hilarious. And those mechs that weren't killed outright usually were damaged pretty badly. In the video they have up, they show a Timberwolf and a Warhawk that survived the initial long tom blast, and they've both lost a leg and an arm, and one of their side torsos is opened up in red, while the rest of the mech is glowing orange. So the tactics have already started being figured out of how to use the long tom to your advantage if it's in opposition to you. That said, I still think the long tom the mechanic of it needs to be reworked. I don't like this just randomly shooting at the largest cluster of opposing mechs and then just recycling to reload and not having really any control over it. I'd rather have some semblance of control, even if it meant that the long tom wasn't as accurate as it is right now.
And I understand like the long tom is supposed to be large artillery shell and everything like that, but the range on it seems a bit from videos that I've seen, the range on it seems a bit ridiculous.
Well, considering in tabletop, long tom is one of the longest ranging. It is no, I'm sorry, it is the longest ranging artillery piece in tabletop, outside of cruise missiles, I think, which don't get added until way, way, way later on. But for damage to range ratio, nothing beats the long tom. It's why it's pretty feared in the lore and in the tabletop, and why you don't see a lot of it, because the long tom cannon is very big. It's so big, in fact, that one of the few drop shifts that mounts it to support the mechs that it carries, the Fortress class dropship, can only mount a single long tom in its nose, and that long tom can only be utilized once the dropship has landed. So it's a devastating weapon, but there are limitations on it in tabletop, and unfortunately here in MWO, those limitations haven't really been implemented. Um, and I guess you could say the random effect of targeting the largest cluster of enemy mechs is supposed to act as a limitation. But as we've seen from Night Scorn and a couple other groups, they've already figured a counter tactic to it that turns that limitation into an advantage for a smart playing team. So I think Long Tom might need to be reworked in the near future.
Or they could just let us put long toms on our mechs, you know?
Long Tom will not fit on a mech.
Yeah, just snub nose it, you know.
Yeah, there are artillery cannons, which are basically snub-nosed artillery pieces, but even then, the crit size that they take up is quite large. I think if you put them in an arm, they take up half the size of the side torso as well next to that arm. But I'm not entirely certain on that.
Yeah, man, just get the long tom artillery cannon. It's only like 20 tons. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So
It was made in 3012. It's ready.
Yeah.
The time has come.
But no, that's the artillery piece. The cannon itself doesn't come out until much later.
I'm looking at Cerner right now. I remember Then again, I don't know how close to the lore Mech Commander was, but I remember strapping them on in Mech Commander. Pretty much ate up the entire Atlas I could put it on, but...
The Long Tom artillery piece is available in 3012, though technically it exists before that with the Star League Defense Force. It just, after the fall of the Star League, the production of it stops, and you only get production back up and running in 3012. So everything between the fall of the Star League and 3012 is bare bones, recovered pieces. The actual Long Tom cannon, however, doesn't come out until... Well, it says 3012 on Sarna, but I'm pretty sure that's wrong. And it's citing Mech Commander's sources, which those are not technically canon. So, yeah, I would say.
But you know what is a cannon? The Long Tom, and we should be able to strap them on our backs.
No.
But let's move on. Is that it for the patch notes? I think overall it's a good consensus of what came out.
A couple changes to mechs. We have some quirks that were changed on a number of mechs. There's 2 PDFs up on the PGI site that describe the changes themselves. They're not a ton of them, but they are there. One of the more interesting ones that I saw was the Hunchback 4G. That's the AC-20 Toten Hunchback. Got a quirk that is listed as 25% less crit chance. And that's the only one that I've seen it on so far. And I think that's one of the more interesting new quirks that have been implemented. The decreased crit chance of minus 25%, which makes sense considering you have the biggest advantage and disadvantage of the Hunchback 4G is that big AC-20 in the side torso, which can do a lot of damage, but is a very big target that can be critted pretty easily considering how many crit slots it takes up. So the fact that the crit chance has been decreased overall by 25% helps that mech in many ways, instead of just throwing in a quirk that adds extra armor or a quirk that adds in extra structure. So while the overall longevity of the mech might not necessarily be affected, the ability of the mech is improved. So hopefully this indicates in the future we'll have similar quirks used on other mechs that will increase their effectiveness without making them gigantic bullet sponges.
Yeah, I didn't really go over the quirks too much because it didn't seem like a whole lot changed for the quirks, at least for the Intersphere side of things.
Yeah, it's not a lot of stuff. Majority of it's taking out, toning down structure on some mechs. The Jester is one specifically that gets structure and armor toned down a bit, predominantly because the Jester was suddenly tanking like no one's business, and it all struck us kind of odd that it was able to do so. The other thing that was done is some weapon tuning, which we had talked about previously. That
the PPCs and LBXs.
Yeah, and so that was expected. Domination game mode has been adjusted. The points on 4 different maps have been changed. Alpine Peaks had its capture point moved to the frozen lake area near the bottom of the map, or a southern point of the map, which is a big thing for that map because where the point was located originally, one team had a clearly distinct advantage over the other when it came to approaching that point. The geometry of the map allowed that team to group up and attack the point in mass while the other team kind of trickled in. The other team didn't have a clear attack vector to the point that would allow it to group up without allowing the opposing team to dominate the point. So, and a number of people had said that they were surprised to see the point there and not down on the frozen lake area, which PGI had said previously that they wanted more people to utilize the whole of the map in that frozen lake area especially. So looks like PGI is learned or remembered that they had said that and realized, hey, why did we put this up here? We should put it down here where we want people to actually go. Crimson Strait had its spawn points tweaked for domination. Forest Colony had its domination point moved, which is a good and bad thing to some people. Where the point was located previously was all right, but it did leave approaches for one team a little bit more vulnerable than the opposing team. The new point is better, but it does allow a lot more corner shooting than before. And then the Viridian Bog Eastern team's spawn point has been moved back a little bit to stop them from rushing the point as easily as they previously did. Then everything else, it looks like, was predominantly little bug fixes.
Which isn't a bad thing. Bug fixes are always great.
No, always good to see, bugs being taken care of.
Let's talk about the tournament support pack, because that got updated since the last time we talked about it, so that it's actually even better now, and there's no reason not to spend $10 into it.
Yeah,
because we were talking about last week how it was only XP earnings, but they've since updated it and is now C-bill earnings for 8 months at 10%. Yep. So
it's C-bill and XP earnings.
Yeah.
So you get both, which is definitely worth it. $10. Yeah, if
it's basically less than $1 a month for what you're getting.
The only complaint I have is they don't have a sample of what the little war horn sounds like up on their SoundCloud right now.
That is true. That is very true. I actually went through recently through my items, and I've noticed new ones that have popped in that I don't even remember having. So
yeah, a lot of those come up from the weekend events that I don't pay attention to, and suddenly I go in to change something, and I'm like, why do I have this bonsai tree? Where did this come from?
Well, it's not even that. It's like I went through my war horns the other day, and I got 4 different Phoenix war horns, and I'm like, when did this happen?
From those packs, man.
I know. Packs. I just don't remember them in general, because I usually don't put a whole lot of stuff in my cockpit. I got a couple rare items I throw in there every now and then, such as the community contributor banner and stuff like that people always say, where do you get that? And I'm like, it's a secret.
Yeah.
But yes, the tournament support pack is very much now worth $10, because you get a 10% boost on your C-bills and XP earnings for literally like 8 months. So
yeah, that's
a little bit less than 8 months now. Yeah, there's only 12 in a year. So.
Yeah, but for the time, for what it's worth, for what you'll gain and for what you'll pay, it's definitely a good deal. Especially if you don't have premium time, and you're worried about spending the money to get the minimum amount of premium time. Getting the tournament support pack instead would probably be worth your while more than shelling out for premium time at at this point if you're unsure of premium time. If you're unsure of how much you can be on actively during while that premium time is active, the support pack is definitely a better overall bargain for you because of the longevity of it. You don't have to worry about trying to play the entire time of those 30 days. So, yeah, if you are at all interested in helping to support the tournament or just upping your game in MWO, upping your rewards, then the tournament support pack is definitely worth the $10. Then I think the last big thing is we got our new mech announcement.
Yeah, the big boy himself. That Cyclops.
Yeah.
Woo!
Which we kind of guessed that it was.
All I can
Our
say
money was on the
is,
Cyclops, and there it is.
I just want to say, Camo Pattern of the Year award goes to
Which one, the Hero Mech one or the special variant?
the special variant. Whew.
All those eyes, they follow you everywhere.
Five Eyes might be getting jealous of the Cyclops and might come after us.
Yeah, of course, once again, Alex has hit it out of the park with the concept art. This looks absolutely phenomenal, especially considering previous artwork for the Cyclops really never lived up to the hype. It always looked kind of, I won't even say quirky, it just looked weird at certain points. The weaponry was never seemingly to scale. Uh, the mech itself looked awkward. Sometimes things were seemingly out of proportion for it. Alex, you can definitely see he takes the time and effort in all aspects when he approaches his concept art. This mech looks absolutely phenomenal. Um, the one thing I am a bit surprised about with the concept art is the placement of the ballistic in the right torso.
And
It's a
how it's not
much
so underslung.
Yeah, in all previous art of it, where the ballistic is in the right torso and it's not a super big bore ballistic like a UAC-20 or an LB-20X or a heavy Gauss rifle, the art usually shows that ballistic muzzle more at the waist level. It's kind of more of a hip firing weapon, whereas Alex's art puts it more at chest level. It's not a change that I'm adverse to. I actually think it looks much better this way. I was just kind of surprised when I first saw it, like, oh, that's definitely different. They moved that up a bit. That's probably going to help overall, though, for this mecha in its ability to target enemies better, uh, especially considering the hero version, the Sleipnir, or I'm not sure if I pronounced that right or not. I know it's the horse that Odin rides in Norse mythology. I know that much, but that sucker, that's mounting two Gauss rifles, and both of them are right and left torso. That's going to be a mean mech to face. Fact also that it carries 2 tons of ammo per Gauss rifle, so 40 shots overall. That is going to put the hurt on a lot of other mechs. It's got a lot of armor too. It's got 544 points of armor. The only thing that really hurts it is that it is using an XL engine. So if it doesn't if depending on size of hit boxes and the crit chances on those Gauss rifles, uh, you definitely do not want that mech getting up close and personal with an enemy, because if you think taking out a side torso to take out a XL is easy prior to meeting that mech, you'll find it a lot easier because your chances of critting one of those Gauss rifles is going to be quite high. And if that Gauss rifle does get crit, that entire side torso goes, and because it's an Inner Sphere XL, that means that mech is dead. So,
And that's one of the things the Cyclops might have problems with is the engine, but it shouldn't be too hard, even if you're not trying to run a crazy amount of weapons, to stuff a pretty good sized standard in there as well.
yep.
Also, I just want to say hello to Darren, who just popped in. How's it going, buddy?
Gentlemen, fellow aces.
What is this,
Hello?
some sort of crossover episode?
Well, honestly, I wanted to jump in here because my trip last week, I got to catch up on all your podcasts, and I was
Really?
enjoying them. Yeah, and I enjoyed them, and so I wanted to say that.
Oh, thank you very much.
I think more people should listen to them. Yeah, it was good. I don't know what the hell you guys expect from us. I mean, we either need to be drinking more or drinking less. I don't know, but
Need to find a happy medium.
no. And you said that, and I agree. Believe me. You know how nervous I was during the drinking one? God.
Yeah, you were nervous. I don't think really.
No, the other two
Phil
were
or
going
Russ were.
full bore. Yeah. But, I've always been the older, more responsible one. But you guys were talking Cyclops. What are your thoughts? I don't even know. I don't even have thoughts on the Cyclops other than Alex Iglesias is a genius.
Yeah, we
That
mentioned
pretty much
that.
summed up where we're at so far.
Yeah, it's definitely that concept art. Alex just keeps knocking it out of the park. I've yet to see a piece of concept art from him that I totally disagree with, or even somewhat disagree with. He definitely does a phenomenal job.
One of the key things about Cyclops as well that I'm not sure everyone picked up on is the fact it comes with a quirked battle computer and special rules with it as well, kind of in a blue blurb right above everything. It seems like a lot of people passed over that on first reading.
All Cyclops variants come equipped with a Tacticon B2000 battle computer in place of the standard sensor suite. This battle computer boosts the sensor range of not just the Cyclops, but any allied mechs within range. Yeah, so what do you guys think about that? I mean, some people are saying, yeah, it does something, but it doesn't do anything of value. Other people are saying it's kind of maybe opening a door for potential future unique characteristics to different mechs like that. What do you guys think about that?
I actually really like it as a concept, and I really do hope it opens up more stuff like this for individual mechs to give them some sort of character. My only question, though, is I assume, I'm going based on assumptions here, that the battle computers do not stack. So if you have 4 Cyclopses, they're not just going to keep getting stacked bonuses.
Otherwise, we'll be detecting things on maps that we're not even on, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like, as you said, that second point of that it potentially opens up the door for mechs to have a more individualistic approach to how they can support their team without just bringing firepower and mobility. The sensor range, I'm not sold completely on that, just because from experience with the way we have maps right now, sensor range doesn't matter all that much on most of those maps, because by the time you're really detecting the enemy, you're already well within good long range firepower, at least for direct fire. It'll definitely help for missile boats, but direct fire, I don't see this being as big of a deal. I would say maybe an alternative would be increasing the speed of target information gathering, where you see the paper doll pop up faster, much like the module that you can equip a mech with. That would be an interesting thing that I think would be of better value than just extending the sensor range. But overall, I'm interested to see if other mechs in the future will get these individual flares that allow them to support a team in different ways other than firepower and mobility, like I said before. So
yeah, Phil and I have been talking a lot about obviously the 4x4 matches, the scouting missions, and the possibility of like a locust or whatever having a better sensor suite so that it could potentially see the data points easier, or have them on their mini map. So gives it a advantage in that kind of a situation. I think the reason why this is, while it's something, it's not super significant. It's certainly not game changing. I think it's just a matter of testing the waters, seeing how the community reacts to this kind of thing, seeing, gameplay implications. Obviously, if we came out with something that was too good and OP or whatever, then we'd have to retract it or, whatever. So the way I'm looking at it is, regardless of whether this particular situation with the this mech is a good add-on or not, to me, I'm looking at its opening doors and potential things down the line that could be really cool.
The other thing I'm very interested to see with the Cyclops is where the cockpit placement is. Predominantly because in the old lore for the Cyclops, they say specifically that the giant monocle eye of the Cyclops is often mistaken to be the cockpit. And it's not. That's actually a giant sensor disc that it works for the battle computer. The cockpit itself actually sits just below that in what is basically the chin neck area, the goiter, I guess you could call it.
The jowls.
Yeah.
The Adam's apple. Yeah,
but
I mean, well, look at the art. I'm only gonna assume that the cockpit is the eye, even if that's
Yeah.
not lore based, just because I don't see really the possibility of anything else being it. But I don't know.
yeah, which I'm okay with that, really, because it's MWO. It's moving the cockpit down there would mean a very small hitbox on a target that is already a rather small hitbox. So I'm okay, really, with it. It would technically go against the old lore, but Randall Bills, I know, is in consultation with PGI. He's writing up
Oh yeah.
little lore snippets for a lot of these mechs as they are coming up, and we know that those snippets that he writes is considered canon. So if he
Yep.
wants to change it and say, yeah, though, that's actually cockpit area now, go right ahead. I don't think it really detracts all that much from it, and it's a change that most of us are from tabletop experience would probably be pretty comfortable with accepting.
It's interesting. I went to Sarna just real quick to see the first of all, I mean, God, the original cockpit art. I mean,
Yeah.
but just to see if it said. Well, first of all, I looked at all the pictures. Can't really see there being a cockpit below the eye on any of them. That doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't there or supposed to be there. I'm just wondering if maybe that's something that came up in the novels. I also did a search on the page for cockpit. The only thing it says is dual cockpit refits for the ones that in the Capellan Confederation that got the dual cockpits, but I don't see anything saying specifically that it's under that.
The write-up for that is actually in the old technical readouts for the Star League and for the Succession Wars era.
Yeah.
I think it's 3025 for it.
That's the best TRO ever, man. 3025 and 3050, those are my two favorites.
Yeah. Unfortunately, certain fluff bits don't make it onto Sarna because the Sarna editors cannot copy directly because it would technically be a violation. So they don't include all of those little itty bitty bits here and there for purposes of one, maintaining control of their website and keeping it clean, and two, avoiding potential lawsuits, which definitely no one really wants to deal with that. And hopefully Catalyst would be nice enough not to do so, but it is a business and we have to respect them for that.
It's a pretty happy family right now.
Yeah.
In fact, Phil and I are hopefully soon planning a trip up to the Northwest so we can hang out with Hairbrain, Catalyst, Hyper RPG, and of course PGI office. A lot of people to hang out with up there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta be playing in one of them their tabletop games on the stream. I tell you.
Well, that's what we want to do.
Is there a chance for you to wager the beard? We've already seen it. 6 beards entered, 3 beards left.
Dude, no way. Not for,
you sure?
I mean, I did it for $5,000 to donate to a very good cause. Would I do it just to do some beard off? Hell no.
What if we got you and Randall Bills in a beard off for charity?
Dude, then I'm totally setting that game up. I'm gonna pay. You know, there's gonna be stuff happening in the background that you don't know. The other team is gonna take a fall because I am not losing a beard over a tabletop game of BattleTech.
Not even if your challenger is Randall Bills,
dude.
The guy himself who is often referred to as the beard of BattleTech.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, dude. I'm right now going for a Gandalf / ZZ Top look, and you know how much effort that is. I am going to be the beard of Mech Warrior, and Randall's not going to stop me by kicking my face in a game of tabletop. There's no way I could beat him. No, beard's here to stay, dude.
He could well, depending on how you set it up, he could spot you some battle value or spot you some tonnage.
Dude, I would totally do Randall and I versus Mitch and Jordan. Yes, I'd be all over that, and I'd do a beard off. They'd be shaving again.
That would be interesting. I think we should.
You hear
we should
that,
shop
Mitch? You hear
around.
that, Jordan? Bring it.
We should
So what's
definitely
that? You
shop
guys
that
gonna take
idea
what?
around.
A bunch of Gauzzillas? Is that what's going to happen?
Whatever it takes, man. All is fair in love and war.
That could be other than the MWO finals. That could be a giant event for MechCon.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, tradition. You mean? Yeah, like every
Yeah.
year. Dude, I'm so excited about MechCon. It's gonna be a lot of stuff. We're still working on a lot of. Speaking of like Catalyst and Hairbrain and so forth. Gonna be good times.
Yep.
But that Cyclops, though.
But that's Cyclops.
That's Cyclops.
That's Cyclops. Wasn't the Cyclops one of the mechs in multiplayer BattleTech Solaris on AOL back in the day? I'm feeling like it was one of the mechs.
I think it might have been.
This one looks pretty much better, I would say.
Yeah.
Oh no, they should have just taken the files from that and just imported
Right.
them. I think it'll look fine.
And the last time we actually had it in an FPS gaming mode though was when MechTech did their giant mech pack for Mech Warrior 4.
Yep.
But prior to that, the last time we'd seen it was Mech Warrior 2 Mercenaries, and you didn't get access to it until really way late in the campaigning. So it's been a long time coming, much like the Highlander and a couple other mechs. It's good to see its return.
One of the biggest questions I know that people have been asking is, are we going to get the eye laser?
Well, one of the variants has an eye laser.
Oh, I know it does, but they want it to come out of the eye.
Yeah, like remember that cartoon Star Blazers and that gun that would shoot out of the... Yeah, it should be something like that, right? Total build up, and then it just goes boosh and destroys everything in front of it. And yeah.
Okay, I kind of now want the little animation that's done for No Guts, No Galaxy to when they do the first animation with announcing the Cyclops, basically have it do the giant big O double fist punch and then shoot the laser out of the eye.
Yes, that would be fun.
Plexi, get on it. But yeah, as far as variants go, especially for the Cyclops and everything like that, it seems pretty well rounded as well. It like especially at the $20 level, and for the value you get out of it, like even at the $20 level, you're getting some pretty good stuff out of the Cyclops.
Speaking of the Ultimate Pack, I had someone correct me in a private message. Previously, we had been saying that you only get 6 mechs in the Ultimate Pack, when in actuality it's 7 mechs because it's the Collector's Edition, not the Standard Pack that's included in that Ultimate Pack. So you get the 3 standard variants and a special variant with the custom camouflage pattern and the C-Build boost.
Yeah, but it's still only 6 variants.
Yeah, it's a CP11A special variant. Yeah.
Yeah. So technically, it's 6 variants, but it's 7 mechs.
7 chassis. Yeah.
So you're paying $10 per mech. So yes, in that regards, it is a better value than 6 mechs. So I do recognize that in terms of technicalities.
The error
is
of your
that
ways, you have seen the light, one might say.
I'm not going to go that far, but
Which is your favorite skin? Do you like as far as the heroes? I mean,
heroes? Oh wow, that's that's a tough one because I really liked that old boar's head skin. I thought that was, just the patterning on that was really cool. But I also like the Llama Linke skin for the Banshee hero. So
right.
it's tough. They've done really well on hero skins. So it's really hard for me to narrow down and say.
I've been wanting more skins and patterns, man. Like I'm getting into the mech bay, and I want some new ones.
Yeah, I would like to see some new camouflage. Surprisingly enough, I don't see a lot of mechs actually painted anymore in most of my drops.
Oh, you're just seeing like green?
I'm seeing a lot of just that drab olive green, or
Interesting.
if someone has painted their mech, they've painted it all one color. I've seen a lot of just solid black mechs.
I wonder if it's a trend.
You gotta get out of tier 4, I'm telling you.
Yeah,
Tier 4 for life.
mid tier 2 actually, but it's I don't know. Maybe it's because of the influx of all new players. They are saving up their MC for other things. Besides playing giant mech Barbie, or I shouldn't say that because mechs are technically action figures.
Right.
So yeah. But for all of us Mech Warrior elitists out there, of course you're going to see us with our mechs painted. What do you think? We're some plebeians?
You know what I really like is World of Tanks, where you can set up, like a winter, summer, and desert camo, and then when you drop into a match, depending on the map, it'll pick the appropriate camo. I like that.
Yep, that would.
I don't know why I brought that up, but just something I like about patterns and camos.
Yep, that is a interesting thing. I don't know if PGI could implement that.
Well, and I also don't know if it matters as much. Not that it matters a lot in World of Tanks. I think it is more just for personal preference and aesthetics, although sometimes it can. But like, if you look at any mech on Polar Highlands, they're just dark, and it doesn't matter if you have white paint or black paint; they almost look the same at a distance. So I don't know.
Yeah, but no, I cannot wait to see this Cyclops in 3D modeled for the game. I'm between it and the Warhammer. I think these are my two favorite mechs that I've seen so far. Kodiak is definitely a close third, but the Cyclops I think beats it out for me. Unless PGI comes up with a Care Bear camouflage pattern for the Kodiak, then I'm on board.
Don't tempt them, please don't. No.
There's been a lot of talk about pink.
Yeah, which I once again I will point out, pink is technically in the game if you purchase the heavy metal Highlander, which is the hero Highlander. It does come with pink, which you can then equip to every mech that you have if you so choose.
Well, I'll remind people of that in the future. There's been a little bit of a pink uprising going on, so all of a sudden we'll see a bunch of heavy metal purchases, I guess.
Yeah, and I know that because every year when it becomes Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I repaint my mechs pink.
And that's what you use.
So,
well, I think that sums up everything. Tyrcron, is there anything else aside from this week at all?
No, we've went over the patch. We've gone over the new release. We've gone over the tournament support pack. Actually, while we've got Darren here, Darren, if you could whisper in the ear at PGI that they need to update the SoundCloud with the new Warhorn sounds if they are there, that'd be appreciated. I'd really like to hear what that globe Warhorn is going to sound like.
It sounds so good. Like, I've been saying this, Tina was streaming it, was it yesterday or the day before? Literally the moment I heard that war horn, I went over and bought the pack. Of course I was going to do it anyway to support the tournament and all that stuff, but that war horn is one of my favorites, if not my favorite now. And I'm going to call it the Solaris war horn. That's what I'm going to call it. You haven't heard it?
No, I have not yet to hear it.
It's like the crowds cheering in Solaris, but it's just done really well. That's the way war horn should be, in my opinion. Not like dun 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 evening news or whatever. Like, no, thank you.
Yeah. And speaking of the tournament prize pack, it has boosted the prize pool by almost $13,000. As
so far, man.
As we are standing right now on the 21st of April, with the prize pack, with the support pack having only come out on the 19th. So, considering they're $10 a pop, that's a pretty good showing from the community in working to support the tournament. Hopefully, we will see that increase exponentially, but we will wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, we got 152 teams registered right now. That's well over twice the amount of teams that registered in MRBC this last season, which was their biggest season. It's getting a lot of exposure. We're getting really excited about it. The prize pool. I mean, I've heard internally, people saying they wanted the prize pool ultimately to be doubled from what we seeded it with at 100K. So kind of an internal goal is somewhere around 200K plus, which wouldn't be necessarily just from these packs. There's other means by which you can increase that. But it's going to be pretty intense. I love the just instant updating, so you can see how many people are buying in and supporting.
So some sort of tracker would be really, really good.
Tracker for
like seeing what the new prize pool's at, because I know when I played Dota, especially during the
there is one.
Is there?
Yeah, you have to go actually to the championship and go to the prize tab.
There's a link right there. Just click on that, and that updates real time.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Your wish is our command.
So,
see, they already did it. PGI already did it.
So, maybe throw something, quick link under the tournament thing on the front page or something. Make it easier, much easier to see. I don't know.
No, I agree, because who do we want to see that? Press and anybody that can bring attention to it. So I agree with that. I will bring it up.
Yeah.
And in fact, something really kind of cool to me is when you go to the store in the tournament section and you actually buy that tournament support pack. Originally, it was not going to have the C-bill boost to it. It was just going to be experience. It was literally the community saying, we want a C-bill boost, and if you put that in there, we will buy them. And so, thankfully, that was done, and I think it's a much greater value now. Because, again, it boosts all of your mechs all of the time through December, I think, 4th. So, until the end of the tournament. 10% C-bill boost, 10% experience boost. Pretty much adds up a lot.
Well, we all know it's because Russ listens to our A.C.E.S podcast, and he heard us complain last podcast that
of course, man.
We didn't think that 10% XP was enough, that it needed C-bills as well. So
if I agree,
so thank you,
he
Russ.
does listen to it, but even if he weren't, I listen to it and he listens to me. So it will get back to him. But yeah, I love community suggestions that actually make sense and then get implemented. It's a beautiful thing.
Good to see. That is one thing I will always, compliment PGI on, is that they do listen and take feedback from their community. A lot of developers, once they get something done and out the door, they couldn't care less. Once they get past any bad press, PGI, they roll with the punches, and they put up with a lot of flack at times for, all their caring. So, thank you for listening and, keeping us all in tune with this wonderful game, even though we sometimes rip you horribly about it.
We do it because we love it.
Yes, we do it because we care.
All right, I think that's pretty much everything there. So let's get a quick wrap up here. So I just want to thank everybody for taking time and listening to the Armored Combat Escalation Service Junkyard Podcast. I've been your host. I want to thank Darren and Tierkron for coming out, guys. Any final words?
I love you, Aces. Good to hang out with you. Thank you for letting me pop in here, and hope to see more of you out there on the battlefield.
All right, until next time, Mech Warriors.